Welcome into the Hockey Hub, hockey fans, or welcome back if you joined Brick and I for the first hour breaking down the preview for the upcoming Bruins season. Now that we know what this roster will entail, for this special hour of the Hockey Hub, we will hear from very, very special guests, live press conferences on the ground. You will hear from Bruins CEO and alt governor Charlie Jacobs, President Cam Neely, and GM Don Sweeney. Live at 2 as the things get ready to get progressing along here. Biggest thing that we can learn from hearing from these three, the big three, one would say.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think of all the presses that you get every training camp. You know, going as far back as when they hired Claude to Butchie to Monty. You know. I don't know if Marco's speaking today, but, you know, usually the coaches are in the building, in the room, you know. But, yeah, always interested to hear from, you know, the business side from Charlie and certainly from the hockey ops side when you talk about Cam and Donnie and what the grand plan is, their expectations and their thoughts on Cam, perhaps, you know. Because I know Donnie was not happy. Well, both he and Cam were not happy with last year's training camp and how it went, and I think that was a major emphasis this year that camp needed to check a lot of boxes. Yeah,
have a completely different tone. You and I had the honor of working together for Media Day, hearing from Don Sweeney on that day, and you can just, of course, there was the joke, everybody's there, which is great, always the best sign, but then moving on from that, it was just kind of the expectation of having the right attitude. And with all of the moving pieces, and you and I kind of talked about this in the first hour, with all of the moving pieces, attitude is going to be the altitude of where this team can go, and the buy-in feels very strong across the board, but being willing to learn is one thing, being teachable is another thing. You feel like you saw a really coachable group out of these guys?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that's what you were looking for. You know, I'm looking for improvement. That's the biggest goal, improvement from day one through the, you know, end of the regular season. Get better every day, get better as a team, get better as individuals, play the game the right way, create that culture that needs to be in place for playoff type teams. And I saw steps along the way in training camp, and that's a good sign. It's not a guarantee, but it's a good sign. It gets you excited about the regular season.
Do you love or hate floor and ceiling conversations?
Somewhere in the middle.
Okay. You're allowed to tell me if you hate it, Brick. Can I at least bid you into saying, do we see 38 plus wins out of this team? I mean, just to think about some of the minute details that needed to be cleaned up, not giving up third periods, being more defensively stout, obviously what takes place between the pipes.
Yeah, I'm looking for 40.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's what I'm looking for. It'll be difficult. It'll be a challenge. You know, there's a lot of parity in this league. But I think that if a lot of things go their way, fall the right way, get the growth in areas of the game and as individuals, you know, taking another step forward, with your production and what is expected of you, and the messaging remains consistent throughout the year. The special teams improve. Yeah, you're a 40-win team. You know you're right there for the playoffs. Yeah,
the degree of separation isn't as large as some might freak out about a little bit. Yeah. And before we pivoted over to hour 2, tried to get Rick to give us a little. Of your thoughts on the Atlantic Division and how competitive this team would be. He said quite competitive, and I do agree. We saw a number of moves made in the offseason, obviously, where certain teams are going to try to flex that muscle, but simplicity is key. We keep repeating that.
Well, the theme for this Bruins training camp was the unknown, right? The unknown. And if you look at the division, it's in the same category. You know, what's Florida going to be without 2 of their horses right out of the gate until at least Christmas? You know, they only had 1 more point than Ottawa last year.
Yeah.
You know, can Ottawa take that next step and win the division? You know, what's Toronto going to be like now that they moved on from Mitch Marner? You know, Tampa always seems to retool and seem to be right there, but they're carried by, you know, 3-4 guys, you know, including
still trying to figure out their power play,
including their goalie. And so I don't know. Tampa, you expect them to be competitive, but they're not going to run away and hide from anybody. You know, and then, you know, is Buffalo ever going to make the playoffs? You know, what's Montreal going to look like? You know, they made a big deal bringing Noah Dobson in there. I don't know if that makes them a great team or not, you know.
He was kind of a liability.
Yeah, I know. He had 1 big year and then a big drop-off. So, you know, what are they going to be? Are they taking steps? Are they going to be another, you know, are they going to be better than they were a year ago?
Right.
You know, is Detroit finally going to make the playoffs? You know, is Stevie Yzerman, the Yzerman plan, when are they going to realize a playoff berth? So there's just so many questions within the division that you just don't know how it's going to play out. I see it as a logjam for most of the regular season, whether it's 3 or 4 teams or 5 teams. You know, we had 5 teams make the playoffs from the division a year ago.
Right.
So, you know, you got to get to about probably 93 points this year and 92 points to make the playoffs.
Taking the lens a little wider there for a second, because the one team that kind of muscled the Bruins out there, well, at least to not be at the bottom, that is, being the Flyers. We mentioned the similarities between these two teams and re-identifying themselves, but can they be better than the Flyers? That's like what I think.
Boston better than the Flyers?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
There we go. All right, we have one of the live press conferences coming at you right here. I'm trying to take a look and see. Oh, there we go. Don Sweeney getting situated, Charlie Jacobs getting situated, Cam Neely getting situated. Take a listen here to the live press conferences right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 100 Causeway Street, the home of the Boston Bruins front office and adjacent to TD Garden. Special welcome to those tuning in live via our live stream on bostonbruins.com, as well as our partners on Nesson and 98.5 The Sports Hub. To my right sit Boston Bruins CEO Charlie Jacobs, President Cam Neely, and General Manager Don Sweeney, all of which are here today to help us officially kick off the 2025-2026 regular season. When we get to the Q&A portion of our availability today, as usual, please raise your hand. We have 2 wireless mics roaming. When it is your turn to ask a question, I just ask that you state your name and who your question is for. Also, would appreciate if you limit it to 1 question. That way we have time for everyone. If you do want to ask another question, obviously raise your hand. With that, I'll turn it over to Charlie for a few opening remarks.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming here today. This is the start of the season, and it's a little bit like Christmas morning. We were talking about how excited we get at the beginning of this season, of every season, frankly, but this season in particular. There's a lot of great energy around the Boston Bruins, around our organization, around our locker room. Marco Sturm has been so far has brought some real energy and some real structure to our team. I'm very excited about how our team is going to play this year. I think the Boston Bruins are going to be a very difficult team to play against, and that was our intention. I'd also like to extend a real heartfelt congratulations to Zdeno Chara for a number of reasons. One, for obviously his induction into the Hall of Fame, but also the announcement this morning that we'll be retiring his jersey this January. With that, I'll hand it over to both Cam and Don for their statements and then some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. I'm very excited about this season. It's been too long to play meaningful games around here, so I'm not saying the preseason's not meaningful, but now points matter. So I'm excited about the season. I really thought we had a very good training camp, very competitive. I thought Marco and his staff has done a really good job getting the team prepared. So again, I also want to congratulate Zdeno. It's such a great privilege to be able to pass that information on to a former player, someone as great as Zdeno's been here in Boston and what he's meant to the Bruins. So again, looking forward to the season. Thank you guys for being here.
Not to be repetitive, but certainly welcome to everybody and as we kick off and open our 25-26 season. I also want to acknowledge incredible achievement in Zdeno, taking his rightful place amongst the likes of the iconic players, the 12 other guys that are up there. Marco just completed his first NHL training camp as a head coach, ran a really competitive, structured, it was really designed to reestablish and build the foundation that he expects our guys to play with. Excited to watch our team play throughout camp and sort of build on each day the expectations that, again, Marco has outlined, his staff has outlined. Refreshing to see the drills, be a little different and bring a new perspective that he incorporated into games. I think the first period the other night against the Rangers is sort of the benchmark. That will be the litmus test because we reverted a little bit in the second period, and then the redirection came and went back to playing the way we're supposed to in the third. That's the standard. That's what fans expect us to deliver, and we're going to do that. As I mentioned, we're going to be a more competitive team each and every night and held to that standard, and let the results fall where they may.
Thank you, guys. Time for our Q&A portion. We have 2 wireless mics. We have Bailey and we have Hannah. Please signal to them, and we'll get going.
Steve Conroy, Boston Herald. Don, you had Fraser Minton make the team. He obviously had a very, very good preseason. But was there any disappointment some of the other younger, skilled guys didn't push for a job?
Well, they're disappointed. A couple of guys yesterday we were talking to were right on the doorstep, and these are the hard decisions you make. Several of them made it very difficult, and Frazier, to his credit, took the opportunity, and he's earned it. So we're going to start that way. The other guys are going to go and put the work in that's required to be next in line. The message is going to be, we're going to play the players that are playing the best. And that extends to Providence. These guys understand why they were brought here, and they delivered from a competitive standpoint. They're on the doorstep. Maddie's played plenty of games here, and Maddie Poitras, speaking of that young player. But Frazier earned it, and as did the other guys that are currently here.
Jim McBride, Boston Globe. This is for either Don or Cam. I know you were disappointed with the way training camp, played out last year. What were the main differences that you saw this year that made you have the kind of optimism you had?
Well, I was forward in mentioning I just didn't think we were as invested as a group last year, and it always starts with the players from that standpoint. We did not raise our level of competition, in the daily preparation that was necessary, and it showed up. And this year, I'm hopeful that the attention to detail, the structure, the things that we were trying to emphasize, but most importantly, the competitiveness will show up and needs to show up. And the guys within the locker room, I think, are recognizing it. There was a different tone. There was a different approach individually and collectively. And the newer guys that have come in are embracing that opportunity. I think Mike Hiesemont's a great example of that. He welcomed an expanded role. He went out and executed at a higher level against the Rangers, and he finds himself riding shotgun with Tanner and Frazier. In all likelihood, if that's the way Marco continues to go, that's the way they practice today. So it's a good example of that infusion that we were talking about.
Russell Macias, the Hockey News. Cam or Don, just you guys have all emphasized the structure that was at play throughout training camp. The way that it looks like it's going to translate is going to be a team that's very hard to play against, which is another thing you've said. So in terms of goal scoring, you mentioned you want to see more of that, but with Swayman and everything, is it almost more looking like you guys are going to be happy playing 2-1 games all year if that's what it takes?
It's going to be whatever it takes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's 2-1 games with, excuse me, that we have to play to win, then we're going to have to do that. I think you mentioned Swayman. I mean, obviously him and Camp all camp this year, I think certainly is going to bode well for the team. We do recognize we may have a little trouble scoring some goals, but I think defensively we can certainly play much better. Obviously, McAvoy and Hampus healthy are going to be a big part of our back end. But I think we're going to be very tough out this year. We're expecting to play very hard every game.
Connor Ryan, Boston.com. For Don, when you look at areas of growth for this team, whether it's defensively, transition, all that sort of thing, what kind of stands out about the lift that Hampus Lindholm can bring this team now that he's healthy and back on the ice?
Yeah, I mean, Cam referenced both Charlie and Hampus, and overall, getting through at this point in time a training camp where we are healthy to start the season is, it's reason for optimism first and foremost. You got other teams that are going through some challenging injuries right off the hop, so they're going to test depth. We know we're going to test depth throughout the season, but we tweaked our systems all over the ice. And as I referenced the building blocks as it went through training camp, I think it's important that there'll be some nuances and some situations that the guys are going to have to go through. The teams on the other side prepare, equally as well, and what they're going to do. So we have to adjust to that. But again, the standard, the competitive things, and again, I'm going to repeat it because that's what we have to do. Especially teams are going to be a big factor of the outcome of games, regardless if they're 2-1 or 4-3. They generally play a factor. So ours have to improve, and that's another area that we've been excited about. Watch practice today and realize Spotter's got command of it, and what the execution, what the continuity of the groups are. They're going to be held to that same standard I've been talking about overall. They're going to go out and execute and allow their creativity to come from there, but the structure is going to be there on a daily basis for them to go out and take advantage of the situations they're in.
I'm McLaughlin, WEI. Don, you mentioned some of the players who went down, Blumel, who he brought in, who had scored goals, Poitras, a more offensive-minded player, even Lysell. Why do you think some of those more offensive-minded guys have had trouble kind of breaking through and sticking?
Again, it comes down to sometimes there's a balance here or there. You know, Steve's scored a heck of a lot of goals in American hockey. He had chances to score in the exhibition games, and so did Mateus. And so did Matty, even the other night in the Washington game. Made some really good plays. Was probably frustrated that it didn't result in production. And sometimes when you're played in those roles, that's what has to come. And they know that. Deep down, if you asked them honestly, they would probably admit to it. But it doesn't mean they weren't filling in blanks on their game. Alex went down and played in the fourth line role and started playing a PK situation. He's expanded his footprint with us. Those are good signs. And they're disappointed, as I referenced. We're not disappointed because they're part of our group. We didn't lose anybody to waivers today. They know that they were on the doorstep of making our team and breaking camp. But they also know there's going to be an opportunity here when either somebody is injured or they're not doing the job that we expect them to do.
Emily Benjamin, NHL.com. For Don, you mentioned that you've liked what you've seen in training camp. How have you seen specifically Marco on this new role and sort of run this camp? And how does that align with what you were hoping for when you brought him in?
I think I referenced, through the interview process, Marco finding his voice and confidence as he was going through the interviews. And his organization, his layout for what the staff expects on a daily basis, his ability to digest how that day went and tweak it the next day. But you've heard his voice throughout camp. And I think that's really important for our players to understand that he's in charge of this and he's running it. He's delegated really well with the areas that our staff and the staff that he has, they need to pay attention to. But the redirection is important. Our guys know who's at the head of the boat in this situation, and they're on board. And he's going to hold them to the standard that he holds himself to and wants to as a coach. He wants to have success. He's going to demand it of each and every one of us.
Kevin DuPont, Boston Globe. Cam, if you look at the March deals, the trade deadline, the acquisitions in July, do you think you can be one of the 8 teams that emerges in the East? And hand in hand with that, what makes this team a tougher out?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to play. We're going to have to play tight defense if we're going to be one of the 8 as we're structured right now, and we knew that going in. We tried to bolster our lineup offensively in the offseason. It didn't come to fruition, but we got guys that are going to be tough to play against, hard to play against. I think teams are going to circle playing against the Bruins and go, oh damn, we got to play them tonight. That's I think the type of lineup that we put together, knowing that hopefully throughout the year we can add some offense somewhere. Our specialty teams have to get better. They should be able to get better. There's no reason for them not to be better. So I think that's an area of improvement, like I said, with being healthy on the back end and also goaltending. So those are areas I really believe we're going to improve upon. It's just a matter of making sure that we're keeping the puck out of our net because it's going to be a little bit more challenging to score some goals. But we're hoping to address that throughout the year as well.
Belle Fraser, Boston Bruins. For anyone, what do you think having Char around this season will do for the guys in the locker room in terms of leadership, how to be on and off the ice?
Yeah, I mean, Zdeno has embraced this advisory mentorship role. And to me, that just sends a message that he sees what guys are capable of doing, and he wants to go out and help them, not unlike himself and when he first got here. But he's evolving too. Like he knows that some of the things that he might have done things, you have to do it differently and communicate differently, which is a testament to him. His relationships with the coaches and the players, he's on level 2. So I think that he's spreading all those details and things on a daily basis and imparting knowledge. He's got a way about him that is not, despite the size of him, is not intimidating. It's just demanding. And but that's what we're hoping for in a lot of ways, and leaning on his experience in an evolving world is a healthy thing, and he's excited about it. Obviously he's had a lot of things come his way, and how humbled he was in talking today about And you saw how surprised he was. Let's be honest, he shouldn't have been that surprised, But maybe the timing is such. So we're happy to have him around, and happy that he wants to be involved with the Boston Bruins again.
Ty Anderson, 98 Public Sports Hub. Cam, you mentioned that you tried to make moves that didn't come to fruition. What reason was there for that? Was it just cap space, trade partners? Like, what? Could you get a little more detail into what didn't come to be?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about specifically in free agent time. We targeted a few players, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out for various reasons.
And I guess to build off that, did that force you guys to pivot more towards the defensive direction that you've embraced here, or was that always going to be in effect there?
Well, obviously, our scouts have a good idea, and our GM and assistant GMs have a really good idea of who's available leading into July 1. And then you take a look at those names and you start prioritizing, okay, who do you want to try to go after? So we did that. We really felt the bottom part of our lineup needed a little bit more piss and vinegar, if you will. So that was something we attacked first, and then the free agent class was what it was from an offensive standpoint. So when it was as limited as it was, maybe some from previous years, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to try to get a player that you may want. But I thought our guys did a really good job of putting a roster together that is going to give us that piss and vinegar, and it's going to be hard to play against, and teams aren't going to enjoy it.
Russell Macias, Hockey News. Just what can you say about John Beecher and Jeffrey Beal working the way they did through camp and making the team outright, despite the competition that was brought in externally?
I mean, I'll reference the way that Cam was describing our team identity, and from a focal point of this summer. Obviously, Jeffrey had a really good year last year. We know he can play, and he's got a style that abrasiveness that we value. In Beach's case, he's got PK and face-off elements that are important. We talked about specialty teams. He's going to have to earn his job back in some ways in terms of impacting the game 5-on-5, as all players need to continue to do. But we go back to the team identity and shaping our roster. We always had the intention to be a harder out. From day one of when our season was sort of going sideways last year, and what we were trying to do at the deadline, we were trying to make sure that we were identifying the most competitive players that we were going to bring to where the smoke be from going forward. And it comes in all shapes and sizes. We want the hardest skill that we can find.
Question for Don. I know you mentioned earlier about the leadership and having that kind of be an organic process of identifying captains and leaders and all that sort of thing. But what stood out to you about camp in terms of how guys like obviously McAvoy and Pasternak have established themselves, but also maybe new guys to the team like a Tanner Jeannot, bringing back Corrali, how they've kind of blended in with this group?
They've done a good job. Obviously, you reference Charlie and David in particular because they're at the forefront of it. You're also acknowledging Hampa's coming back in, having missed and not being part of that locker room for the vast majority of last season. You have other players that are going to have to continue to have their voice on and off the ice be heard a little louder. We've also brought in players that have been in other places and are comfortable. You mentioned Tanner. So they've formed their leadership group. Moving forward, they'll acknowledge who the third person to wear the A will be. They're not concerned about the captaincy part of things. They're only concerned about the leadership and them coming together as a group. Newer faces, personalities. Had a fantastic day yesterday, obviously with Charlie and Cam supporting that, and Paulina and Loren and everybody putting together an outstanding day for us to get together as a family, as Cam was described yesterday, and it kicks off the season for us in all the right regards. So we're moving in the right directions in all those areas.
Question for Charlie. Kevin DuPont from the Boston Globe. Charlie, you don't go through a year like last year without fans being disgruntled. Can you tell us what kind of hit that has meant to the season ticket base? And what is the challenge of the season ticket office and marketing department been these last 5 months?
Well, I actually need to check, but I want to say we have a 12,000 person waiting list that people pay for, and I think we are hit about a 94, almost 95% season ticket renewal rate this past summer. So despite the rough season that we had on the ice, our fan base was very supportive in renewing their seats, and luckily we've been blessed with that.
Bridget Pruitt, WEI. This is for Don and Kim, if you want to add in your thoughts as well. When it comes to the middle six that you've put together, in terms of the offensive side of what they can do, where do you see, that? Who do you see being able to contribute there?
Well, the way the lines were constituted in practice today, with Pavel going up and playing left wing with Casey and Victor, it points to what the comfort level that the coaches have in Frazier, anchoring a third line in the middle of the ice. That's a good sign. So it allows things to spread out up top, and the other two guys that they're playing with, we know they're going to get defensive zone started. They're going to have some harder matchups, but the energy's not going to drop off. The detail's not going to drop off, and that's what being harder as a team is. And the guys that can move up from there. I mean, we have guys that we just sent down. We feel can go in and contribute. Did they hit their marks in camp and finish their chances? They didn't, but doesn't mean they didn't get them and generate them. We were fine in generating what we wanted to generate. Our power play got better, progressively better as camp went along, and the continuity of the group started to come together, and they reinforced it. They worked on it again today. They're going to work on it, and we'll be fine generating wise. We just have to stick to the, to the structure and the foundation, as I referenced, that and not go sideways. The second period's a good example. You get away from it, the other team's good. They'll take advantage of that. If you don't, we're going to be a hard out.
Scott McLaughlin, WEI, for Charlie. You mentioned, the season ticket waiting list and fan interest still being pretty high. Does that inform at all, how quickly you want this retool to happen or need it to happen?
I think the pressure's there every day, no matter whether we won the cup last June or not. I think I started this press conference by talking about Christmas morning, and it's an exciting new opportunity for a new season. There's pressure every day. We're very blessed to have the market that we have and the fan base that we have, the wonderful fan base of not only Boston but New England. Yes, we're fortunate to have a season ticket waiting list, people that actually pay money on deposit to be on that list, and then have the renewal rate that we did, especially given the season that we did. Very fortunate. It just speaks to the veracity of this market and how much they love the hockey, Boston Bruins hockey.
We also recognize, though, that they have their own expectations of their teams in the city. So we have to match that or do better than that.
That's right.
We're not satisfied at all with last year. We know we need to be better, and that's our mission, is to be better. Like Charlie said, we're blessed to have this great fan base. It's really a treat to see this building come alive. So we got to give them more reasons to come alive this year than we did last year.
Don, what are the challenges of a compacted schedule because of the Olympics, and do you see, as a result of that, more transactions calling guys up just to keep the roster fresh?
Well, injuries generally dictate. When you got compression, they're likely to happen. As I referenced earlier, we're clean coming out of the gate at this point in time, so I hope they stay away. Everybody knows what it is now. We've gone through compression of the schedule. Last year, the Four Nations was a good test drive of that. It's a little bit more extended this year. With the Olympics being a little bit longer, the players are excited about the Olympics. It's a great feather for our sport and the NHL to be participating. So they're excited about it. It's not going to derail anybody in terms of how they plan. The goaltending situation, the best guy's going to play, but you got back-to-backs. They don't generally play there. We're going to be fine from sort of spacing it out. There'll be some times, that maybe the bottom six of your lineup has to lead. because the top guys are a little more tired. And that's, part of the philosophy of the identity that we went with, because you're going to need it. It's not just because of the compression of the schedule. It's a hard league.
Fudo Shinzawa, The Athletic. Don, your prospect pool, having seen rookie camp, development camp, how guys did in main camp and perhaps starts that some of your amateur guys have had, what is your overall assessment of what you have coming up?
Rookie camp is really interesting now because the players, Cooper Simpson's case, he's part of our rookie camp this year. He's playing in the USHL. He's going to go to college next year and won't be part of our rookie camp. It's all over the map in terms of when you have access to your players. Some guys are coming out of the CHL that played in rookie camps previously, and now they're going to college and they won't be part of it. We had several guys. In a game the other night, we had 7 of them playing. It was an easy scouting opportunity for us to go. So we've deepened it. There's no question we've deepened it. We're happy about that. That was the intention at the deadline with our staff doing a good job. Fraser's a great example of our staff doing the work that's required, and kudos to them for being adamant that Fraserman was part of that deal. And the other players, we're going to monitor. We've expanded our development staff with Ben Smith coming on board to work with Adam and Parker Mackay. It's an exciting time to start to think that we are trying to add to a deeper pool. We weren't in that position for several years. We're still chasing. The question was asked earlier. There's no complacency involved in what we're trying to accomplish as an organization, and that's fact, not fiction. So we expect what we're gonna do, and we have to build appropriately, and those kids will develop at what they determine is the proper rate, not the team. We're going to be in conjunction and put every resource in front of them for them to take advantage of, and then it allows them to get to the National Hockey League ready to play and impact the team.
Don, if Fraser, back here, Don, if Fraser starts with Jeannot and Isamont to start the season, what are some of the advantages of him playing with them in terms of maybe getting him space on the ice, protection, things like that? And what have you thought of Isamont and Jeannot based on expectations when you signed them?
I thought that line was really effective, against the Rangers. They're setting the tone to be, very direct. Mikey played really well against the Rangers there, in New York as well. And again, he's excited about that opportunity, playing a little more of an elevated role. Both of them are being integrated. All 3 of them, as a matter of fact, are being integrated in the penalty kill. Spoke about that when they chose to join our organization and the expanded roles that they felt that they were going to have an opportunity to do. And they've been around the league. They're going to help Fraser through some of these situations, and Fraser can play pretty free for that matter, because I think the flies will be kept off to a large degree. But he's a competitive kid, so I don't think he was concerned about that at all, where he was playing. He's earned his spot, and is excited to play with those 2 guys.
Mary Olivia Ayers, BNG. I know you were able to get Sean Corrali back this year. What do you see his role being this year, and what is he crucially bringing to the team?
Well, again, going back to the energy comment, and professionalism, familiarity with our locker room and what we're trying to accomplish organizationally, I think Sean has come back and fit in seamlessly. He's excited about the opportunity and the role that he has. He knows he's going to get D-zone started. He knows he has to win his face-offs. He was critical of himself the other night because he didn't do the job that he's expected of himself. That's pride in, as I referenced, professionalism and knowing what the coach is asking you to go out and do. And he's got an infectious personality. He's got energy about him that drags people in, rather than sort of being a quiet, do your job mentality. He's got both, and he's going to be a big part of our penalty killing situations. Again, late in games, protecting leads, being in the 2-on games that maybe somebody referenced earlier that we may be a part of. And he's still going to be part of the forecheck side of things because his skating ability hasn't dropped. So we're excited to have Sean back. He fits in really well.
Anybody else? All right, well, that concludes our availability today. Just a reminder to the group, the team will practice at TD Garden tomorrow. Zdeno Chara will be available to media at 10 a.m. in the press room. Following practice, the team travels to Washington to open the regular season against the Capitals on Wednesday. and then back home on Thursday for our home opener. So thank you again to everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, you heard it there from Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, and Don Sweeney. Just everything that they evaluated throughout training camp as well as the preseason. A lot of hard-hitting questions in terms of the offense, but more importantly, energy, structure. The main things I would say some of us were looking for. Your biggest takeaway from here from the three of them?
Yeah, that was the biggest takeaway was camp. You know, camp is just concluded. We're getting ready for the regular season. All right, how did you evaluate camp relative to what it was a year ago? And you're right, the structure was there, the energy was there, the competitiveness was there, the fact that Marco Sturm's voice was heard, he's in charge, and they want to build a team that is a tough out. That was the theme. We heard that phrase numerous times in that press conference. We want to be a tough out. We've brought in people in our third and fourth lines to address that. We weren't a tough enough out. We weren't deep enough when it came to the things that are necessary to be a tough out last season, and those are the things we addressed. The free agent market wasn't there, they felt, in terms of trying to capture a whole bunch of offense, so they addressed what they thought was their bigger need in the off season with the players that they brought in. And they were hoping that the competition would bring out the best in their young players as they try to draft and develop or acquire players and then develop them at a young age. Mitten's a great example of that. He touched on Poitras, obviously, and the two American League guys that with a lot of production on their resume just didn't do enough to displace anybody that they also liked in their 23-man roster. Those were the themes I took out of that. Cam did say he expects to be a top 8 team in the East, which is
as a statement.
That says they have belief in what they did, what they're doing, and where it's going.
Absolutely, and everything fits the bill in terms of this team being difficult to play against. And I might have some overly optimistic examples for you hockey fans as to why being tough to play against can get you in that top 8 when it comes to the East. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go to a quick break and continue to break down everything that we heard from the press conference right here on the Hockey Hub. Welcome back into the Hockey Hub, where we just heard from Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, and Don Sweeney talking about all things training camp, preseason, and expectations for the upcoming season. Now, it's been pointed out quite a bit, the fact that it's going to be pretty compact, especially in October. That kind of sends me back to that weird, funky 2021 season, 56 games. Teams were relentlessly playing almost every other night, and you saw a number of guys be able to weather that storm. You got a couple of the guys on this roster now that already knows what that feels like, but sometimes when you have such a compact schedule, there's a way to kind of still have an elevated level of play. Are you concerned about this by any means? He mentioned, Don Sweeney, that there was a bit of a test run there for Four Nations.
Yeah, it just it screams depth and roster. Everybody's got to contribute. Everybody's got to play. Everybody's got to do their job. You know, I mean, everyone will get a taste of this schedule in the first month of the season. Whether you're in the starting lineup on Wednesday or not, you will get an opportunity somewhere this month to be in the lineup and be an impactful player. That being said, if you look at certain areas of the Bruins and the improvement necessary to be a top 8 team, I mean, the list is endless. You expect with more structure, the goaltending will be better. You know, the fact that you had your number one goaltender in camp this year, your goaltending should be better. Your team defense, even though they've tweaked what they do in the defensive zone, they should be better because, you know, they're getting the same message day in and day out, and they've raised the competitive level in practice on a daily basis that they felt wasn't there a year ago. That should help your team. Your special teams, you bring in a power play specialist coach in hopes to get more results. I mean, the power play has to be better in terms of efficiency. What's, how many, what are you, 20%, 25%? But more importantly, it's the timeliness of your power play goals. Is that power play goal tying a game? Is it giving you a lead? Is it extending a lead? Those are the opportunities that you really have to cash in on. Whether you're 30% or 20%, I'm really not big on the number. It's when your goal scores, when your power play goals are scored, and how meaningful are they? Are they 3, 4, and 5 in a blowout win? They skew the numbers.
Yeah.
I need a power play goal when I need a power play goal, or certainly a game-changing momentum power play that carries over to your 5-on-5. And if your power play improves, individual offensive performances will improve at 5-on-5. It's just a natural sequence. That's the way it works. And then your penalty killing. They talked about guys that haven't killed penalties really in their careers that are going to be asked to be penalty killers because you can't lose them. They need to be actively involved in the game. So just those areas alone will make the Bruins a far more effective team. And then the growth has to come in certain areas like not giving up late goals in periods, not giving up goals in 6-on-5 situations, not losing 1-goal games, not losing overtime games. All those little areas that amass points over the period of time if you want to be a top 8 team. All those things have to come, but it starts with the things that they're talking about: structure, competitive, energy, and attention to detail. And you heard Donnie Sweeney say, we will play the players that are playing the best.
Right.
So everybody's got opportunity. Play your best.
Yep.
You will play.
Bring efficiency to the table. I like the gusto and the statement of saying we can be a top 8 team because being hard to play against, you can have an edge in some ways. Actually, you can slow down those speedy teams. And if you slow down a speedy team that relies on their speed to get into the zone and score points, well, there you go. It's in your favor. Now you're within one in a number of opportunities. Someone asked about, being able to be in a lot of 2-1 win situations, but regardless, a win is a win. You've seen dumping the puck also change over the past couple of years, and kind of how the Florida Panthers ruined that for the Oilers 2 years ago in the Stanley Cup. So just for anyone that's still a little trepidatious of not having these big offensive names and them being a hard to compete against team, how important that actually can be to tip the scales and kind of have these wins that can surpass them and get them into a top 8 conversation.
I think about when Mike Sullivan took over the Pittsburgh Penguins and they won back-to-back cups. They talked about the pace of the game and the speed that they played with, but the speed emphasis was on defense, how fast they played defensively. And I'm seeing some of that from the Bruins in camp with their ability to back check. When the other team has the puck and they're facing up ice, you go into that 1-2-2. You don't try to play a speed game there.
Okay.
But in a turnover game, in a counterattack game, when you turn the puck over, how fast do you get back to help your D so your D can gap up? And I think that's where I saw some really good things in training camp. It's not highlight material. It's not what you roll out when you
It's not sexy.
No, it's not. It's not. But it's effective and it wins. And if you get that buy-in, and if that's the message that's coming from the coaching staff, that's a good thing. That's part of that being a hard out, is the way you play without the puck and how much pace you play when you defend and how you get back and take care of mid-ice in your own zone. And I think with that growth alone, you're going to be a better team, regardless, even if you're not as skilled down the middle as you've been in years past. I think with that kind of attitude, that kind of approach, that kind of coaching, that this team can be effective that way.
You mentioned having the ability to get back a couple of times, and then they also mentioned in the press conferences just some new intricacies to training camp, some new drills, and a lot of hammering on having a two-way ability out of all of these guys. They asked about the young players that have the offensive capability not making this roster. Would you say it's more so the fact of most guys, if not all guys, had to be able to have a better two-way ability to their game to fit into this system?
100%, 100%. And, not everybody's going to be a great 200-foot player, but you live with the deficiencies as long as the assets outweigh the negatives, But on this team, the way it is currently constructed, everybody's got to have some kind of a 200-foot game, plain and simple. When you see David Pastrnak carrying the puck through center ice and there's not a play to be made, He's chipping and chasing. You
Yeah.
know, if your best player's doing that, you know, I used that reference from 16 and 17 or whatever the years where the Penguins won back-to-back cups. You want to do more recent? You mentioned Florida. Yeah, they would wire the puck in, you know, and then they'd transfer the puck from side to side. It was like a game plan. They played the rap game.
Yeah.
You know, and the defenseman would cheat, knowing that when they dumped it in on this corner over here, it was going a hard wraparound. But, you know, because everybody sags back to the slot. Well, now you got possession in the offensive zone on a chip and chase
Manipulating your
game
opponent.
when you just play the rap game. And in Florida was masterful at that, masterful. But it was all part of their game plan, and obviously effective. You know, back-to-back cups, three appearances in a row, pretty good.
Yeah, I have to say yes to that, but I have a lot of angry fans and family back home that don't want to hear it, that's for sure. Middle six comes up often and was a question presented. Of course, the conversation of Zacha at wing. You and I have talked about it quite a bit, but what I liked was the conversation more so about creating space for Fraser Minten. And as he continues to develop in that role, could we see him be one of the goal scorers on that line? Or is it going to be more of a, let's see where Mikey Eyssimont game can go? Because for one, we've talked about how relentless he can be, but for two, he doesn't wait for perfect opportunities to come to him to shoot the puck. That's what is really interesting about him, and he tends to find wayward angles to get the job done sometimes because he's not overthinking the shot, he's going for it. Positives and negatives there.
Yeah, starting with Fraser Minten, when I look at him statistically, what is an expectation from me for him? It's to be on the positive side of the ledger most nights.
Okay.
You know, okay, you're on the ice for more goals than you're giving up. So, and he has that approach to the game. I'm going to be in the right place at the right time, all the time, defensively, and then try to grow my game offensively. And as far as growing his game offensively, I think it's a balance. Goals and assists would relatively be close to each other. You know, 6 and 6, whatever it might be at different points in the season. He has the ability to pass the puck. He has the ability to shoot the puck. And if he's going to get into some scoring areas, if he's playing with a couple of veteran guys that play their game on the outside, he's going to get some opportunities in and around the net. And because he'll be responsible, he'll be that third guy. He'll know when to be lower in the offensive zone. You mentioned you saw him go to the net a number of times. He drew a penalty, got roughed up at the top of the crease, but so what? You know, put our team on a power play. So it's not so much the numbers and the analytical numbers, it's just how he plays the game, how he sees the game, and as long as they're on the right side of that plus-minus ledger, that's a good third line.
I love that, focusing on the eye test versus the stats too much there, and I think that that's a big thing when evaluating a guy like Fraser Minten. Let's hear from Marco Sturm on Fraser Minten right here.
I like this kid. He played great. He came in ready to go. He played like a man. Didn't complain about the rookie tournament. He just did his job. On and off the ice. I like him. Again, today he was very, very solid. That's exactly the way I wanted him to play. And I think it really helps, too, for him playing with a guy like Tanner Jeannot, especially with him. He takes care of him, so there will be no issue. And he's huge for me also on the kill. So he brings a lot already. Not just for me, but for the whole team, and I'm very happy about his game.
We all like him too. Let's hear from the man of the hour because he's playing like a man right here, Fraser Minten.
Like I just said there, you're focusing on doing what the coach wants and being reliable. That's how you get minutes, and with minutes over an 82-game season, you're going to get chances. And everyone here has skill. Everyone here was the best player on their team at one point. They can all put pucks in the net. So it's just about getting out there, getting minutes, getting the coach's trust, and then the offense will come.
All right, once again, here is the Bruins roster. As anticipated, top line sticking the same. Zacha at wing, Middlestat centering that second line. Arvidsson out to the flank there. Jeannot, Minten as an earned spot at that 3C. Eyssimont now, he was actually kind of hanging on at that fourth line, also projected to come in at that fourth line. Works and earns that spot wing of the third line. Husnudinov, Kuraly, and Kastelik. on that fourth line. I'm going to call them all of the names. But again, just identity really comes in and is heavy for this team, especially when it depends on who you can rely on the bottom six. I want to touch on Mikey Eyssimont for one more second here because, as mentioned, he was kind of hanging out on the fourth line for a minute. You can kind of throw him in anywhere a number of times. Saw him in Tampa Bay jump up on the second line if they needed him. Don Sweeney emphasized depth for this team and the fact that everyone's coming in healthy, which helps quite a bit. But with the compact schedule, with the depth availability, with the ability to move guys around, how much can this give this team an edge?
It gives you options, which is what you want. Somebody goes down to Providence, maybe Blumel or Steves or something, and they start lighting it up. okay, and they get their confidence and they're scoring goals, they're getting opportunities, they deserve a chance to get a shot in the Bruins roster. You bring him up, you're not sticking him on the fourth line. Now, you might put him on the third line, and that allows Isamont to go down on the fourth line and play his game with Corrali and Kaslik. You know, so you just have options. You have options within the organization. They talked about building more depth within the organization. They feel like they accomplished it by the acquisitions they made in March and the signings that they made over the off season. But when you have flexibility, when you can do a lot of different things, right? It allows the coach to move you around and you adjust your game to who you're playing with without losing your identity as a player. And it allows the coach more options to impact the game with player movement.
Okay, and I love that because you and I actually talked last week about you being a key component back in your playing time, knowing that if you had to be on a certain line with certain guys, how to either expand or make sure that you emphasize the efficiency of your role. I want to pick back up on your thoughts there after we come back from this quick break here on the Hockey Hub. Welcome back into the Hockey Hub. We were finishing a thought before we went to break there last week, but it was off camera. I was asking Brick, I was like, hey, did you listen to music? Did anything gas you up before games? And you said no. You were too busy evaluating your opponent and making sure that you needed to expand and be more efficient on your role to help the guys on your line. Just kind of continue to emphasize that thought because that's basically what you're discussing when it comes to these third and fourth line guys.
It's positive imagery. You know, you picture yourself in every situation that was possible to happen in that game. I try to evaluate the other team. Who would I most likely be going up against? What D pair, what line? And then who am I playing with on that particular day? And how did I need to play to make sure I was getting the most out of my line mates and not deviating from what I bring to the table, you know, what my skill set was. And I had versatility, so I was used in a lot of different roles throughout my career. You know, one night I might be a power play guy with, you know, top four. And the next night I might be a checking centerman who's got an assignment to cover a guy that needed to be shut down. So can't say that I was great every night, but I had different roles, and it was the versatility that allowed me to be a more valuable player. It can hurt you a little bit when you start talking about, you know, you want to be a goal scorer and put up points and, you know, and go to the bank.
Right.
But then you're asked to be a defensive specialist, kill penalties, and shadow people. So, which isn't a sexy job, but it's one that's required. So, yeah, versatility is a good thing. And I think if you have versatility in a number of players in your lineup, it allows you to do different things, I think, that can impact the outcome of the game.
Yeah, you can offer up some different disguises, but either way, what you described there sounds like leadership to me, which leads me to my final question. No captain going into the season, but how can that actually be a benefit for this team as guys just discover what their leadership voice is? Because it's different when you're on the ice versus off the ice.
Yeah, they're in the process of establishing their leadership group, and this is something I've told you, Casey, before, that you need more than just your top players to be your leaders. And you heard the press conference, they talked about Corrali and why they went and got him. The bottom, the third and fourth lines, they need leaders. They need leaders, and if you have leaders in that group, that's a good thing. That's a benefit to your team. They don't have to wear Cs. Nobody has to wear a C this part of the season. They may get to one eventually, but they're in the process of reestablishing the necessary culture and the leadership group, and how that all unfolds, we will watch, we will see, and we will certainly get a feel for it as we get deeper into the season. And the best way you can be successful with that leadership group is to win hockey games.
Right.
You win hockey games, that leadership grows and grows and grows.
And the voice gets louder. Someone who knows about winning games, that's for sure. In case you guys missed it, Zdeno Chara's number 33 going to the rafters on January 15th. I believe the Bruins will be playing the Seattle Kraken. As we close out, a guy like this, can he help sniff out the leader in this locker room throughout this season?
Absolutely. What did Donnie Sweeney describe it as? Even though he's a huge man, he's not intimidating, just demanding.
Actually, that's what I've heard. Haven't figured it out yet. Saw him at Fenway when him and Tuukka threw out the ceremonial pitch. Went and said hi to Tuukka really fast, looked up at Zdeno, and I was like, maybe next time. I allowed it to get to me, I'm not going to lie. But it's sometimes that kind of presence that's needed regardless. And like you said,
Imagine if he was pitching his release point, it'd be right on top, like Randy Johnson,
He completely narrowed the distance on that one. I think it was Liam Hendricks that was out there catching and helping out. But how excited are you to see number 33 go to the rafters?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, what a select group to join. Certainly well-deserved. He reestablished what it meant to be a Boston Bruin. It's a phrase I use a lot, but it's so appropriate for what he meant to this organization. And he was all business, and he was all inclusive. He was all welcoming, and he led by example as well with his fitness regimen, his commitment, his sacrifice.
Discipline.
And those are the things that are required if you want to have your jersey hanging from the rafters of the Garden.
Oh, yeah. And you can just speak to how great this organization is with the amount of alumni that are involved, coming back and wanting to be a part of the new era that is finally here for the regular season, getting started on Wednesday. But don't forget, guys, the Hockey Hub, new time, new-ish days, Monday and Friday, 1 p.m. on NESN Nation. And if you don't have the opportunity to join us live, you can catch up on all of the hockey information on either YouTube over at NESN, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. More importantly, make sure you're watching pre- and post-game to get the best insight so that you can continue to gauge the growth of this hard-to-play-against Bruins team coming up for the 2025-26 campaign. Brick, it's always an honor to get a chance to sit with you and talk about the Bees. Now we get to stop with the hypotheticals. We got real hockey going on. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of the Hockey Hub. That is Friday at 1 o'clock. Set your alarms. Make sure you join Sophia and myself right back here on the Hockey Hub.